Welcome to the Daily Jump. And today we are traveling to Petrolia, Ontario, Canada. And I am delighted today to have as our special guest Jack Greydanus, who made the very smart decision about 40 years ago, next month, to marry my sister. So Jack and I have known each other for a very long time. There's a lot of water under our communal bridge here. And now the bridge between us is a border, the US-Canadian border. And the reason why I have invited Jack onto the Daily Jump is because of his experience, hands-on, as a farmer. For many years, he grew up on a farm just outside of Cobourg, Ontario. Dairy farm, and he met my sister at an agricultural college, Kempville. Go Kempville. And together they have grown a business that is quite, oh, and there she is in the background. That's my sister, Chris. Together they have grown a business which their children have followed in their footsteps. As he progressed in his profession as a farmer, he gradually took on leadership roles nationally in Canada, eventually becoming chair of the Canadian Hatching Egg Producers, which you did for how many years, Jack?
I was involved for 8 years and on the board for a total of 15.
And you just retired from that last year, is that correct?
About a year ago now, actually, yes.
Wow.
Just a year ago now.
So during that time, he was traveling around the world representing his agricultural community, the Canadian Hatching Egg Producers, at the World Trade Organization trade meetings. He helped, was in the room as the new NAFTA, North American Free Trade Agreement, was negotiated. And he was also in the room as the Trans-Pacific Partnership was negotiated and agreed upon. So what I'm interested in exploring today with you, because you're someone who both has skin in the game, you're still farming, you've got a very large farming operation. You've also taken a great interest in the development of your local town, Petrolia, Ontario, and members of your family, one of who we spoke to at the Daily Jump, your daughter who had to shutter her very successful restaurant. So this is impacting you on a lot of levels, but you're someone I know to be creative and an innovator and a thinker in your specialty. So I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on the shift that we're requested and need to make at this point as far as food goes. And so why don't we start there? I usually start with how are things in your household, but I think we're going to go big and go home today.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for the invite to come to this. So I was looking through this through a lens of, we know we're cocooning, right? People are very social people, recognizing our daughter has a restaurant and what she had to do there. So all of a sudden, there's a big change from very social to very inward looking. So what's that look like? I actually went into a pizza joint in town today, 11 o'clock, and it says, okay, I understand, the market's changed dramatically. Are people moving to takeout, right? And it was remarkable what came out of her discussion. And she says, Jack, we have decreased sales. So there is not people saying they're not eating, they're still eating, they're just eating it, they're just taking it home and eating it. No, I think the big focuses that I picked up on this are people are taking a new look at how they eat food, and that's internal. So I said, okay, what's changed? So what I went on the craft site, and it says, okay, what's increased in price or increased in demand? Peanut butter's increased in demand over the last 2 weeks of 35%, and craft dinners increased by 41%. And this is Ontario, okay? Or
Yeah.
sorry, Canada. This is Canada. So what's that say? I'm saying we don't know how to cook, or what, or it's saying is we're going to plan B. And I'm saying is, okay, what else has changed then? If that's the real reality, what else has changed? So you take a look at it and say, okay, what's happening in the media? We know in Canada right now, there's 250 hours a week of cooking shows, okay? We also know we sold, I think it was $10 million worth of cooking books last year across Canada. Sales are still increasing on cooking books, people that are looking at cooking, all right? And say, but then look at other things, saying, okay, let's look at the sales of spatulas, mixers, cooking bowls and stuff like that. What's happened to those? They decreased over the last 5 years, 2% last year alone. So people are thinking about it, but they're not doing it. So I says, okay, why? So we take a look at it. Let's look at baby boomers. We know, and I'm a baby boomer, when I was a kid, 95% of my food was cooked in the house. We know millennials, when they were born and when they were growing up, thanks, got a tea delivered here, that millennials now, 64% of their food when they were children was cooked at home by their parents. Gen Xers, which are what, 20, 25 now, 55% of their food when they were growing up was cooked at home. The balance came from other places. So what's that mean? That means a lot of people got to know how to cook. That's why, maybe they don't know how to cook. They have opportunity to cook, but it's just not there. They're not cooking. We also know, this is a survey done, that 68% of Canadians want more time to spend food at home. They'd like to increase the capacity to cook at home. They have other reasons, right? Whether it's social, whether they don't have time, whatever. They want to increase the capacity to prepare food at home, but they just don't. Well, I think the opportunities come down is to say that you have no choice but to learn how to cook at home. The infrastructure's there, right? Nobody's buying it. We just, grocery stores are pretty busy. I tried to get the math today, what the increase in sales are. That had been to last while. So what's the new reality? I think the new reality is they're going to get what they wish, and it's that people are going to eat at home. So what does that change going forward? If I'm an opportunist as an agriculture provider, how do I take advantage of that? That's probably the bigger question you're asking me. So again, what do I see happening for me as a guy that fit dirty hands in the farming side? Big ag, let's call it production ag, whether it's a whole bunch of chickens or a whole bunch of land, soybean production, corn production. What do I see happening in that piece of the marketplace? I don't see a lot of change. I don't see other people jumping in and starting small farms and saying, yes, we're going to protect myself. I don't think that's going to be a big enough segment because of the knowledge base required and the capital required. I just don't see a lot of big mood in that area. I just think a lot of difficulties if we're going to go in that area. But the next piece I think has a lot of opportunity, and that's on the processing side. What do I see happening? We're going to move from the food service, the restaurant side, because we're not open anymore. We're going to move a lot of that food production and the processing side into retail, right? Food ready, whether it's food ready to go home or whatever. You're going to see a big movement change in that area.
Interesting.
I think that is going to change what we see happening in restaurants, and that's another piece of it. So now what do I see changing in that marketplace? Opportunities for people that want to move forward on opportunity. I see the movement towards more local development of process. Instead of us going to, in the United States, it's Tyson, in Canada, it's Maple Leaf, where they such big investments in such big complex processing plants where automation is taking over but requires people. And I think staffing's going to be an issue on these things. So what I see happening is people, opportunities and smaller development processing plants in rural parts of Canada, rural parts of the where the labor force maybe isn't as stringent, where you have that separation. I see some opportunity in that area. I also see opportunity in the food service area. I think we can still cook it at home, but make it more available at home. What that looks like, whether that's the Uber Eats thing, I don't know what that is, but it's actually cooked at home, but it's technically prepared somewhere else. And that dovetails into what happens to the KFC or the KD dinners and stuff like that. I just think people want something quick. They're prepared to try and cook something. They don't necessarily want to go to restaurants anymore, but they want it at home in front of the computer. So that's where I see a big shift going. And really, what's the big game changer in my world is what's the restaurants look like going forward. I just do not see restaurants staying the way they are. I see smaller restaurants falling by the wayside. I really do. It's just going to hurt them that bad. So what do we see? Do we see bigger chains coming in? I see even the smaller franchise changes finding it difficult too. I do, because I think it's going to be a big shift on how we eat and where we eat. I just see it happening because it's just people have to do it and they look at a new opportunity. I just see that some potential gains there. So that's where I see the bigger piece going on this. I don't know if you have any questions around that. I'd be open to some thoughts on it, but that's Jack's crystal ball as of the last 24 hours.
I'll just maybe build on something you said because, so I live in a very urban area. I'm in a neighborhood that's very close to downtown DC, and I'm right up against. So I'm in a neighborhood with, it's a neighborhood with apartments and houses, but I'm in the house part of it, and then right up against us are huge apartment complexes and then office buildings, huge office buildings. And Amazon is the news just before we moved here. Amazon announced the decision to put a headquarters like a couple streets down from us, literally. So huge population density. One of the and some very high-end houses, some very high-end apartments. We're very close to the Pentagon, and so we've got Lockheed Martin and some beautiful office buildings, and then some beautiful apartment buildings close to those as well. And there's Whole Foods. There's a Whole Foods very close to us. And grocery stores tell a story when you walk into them about the people that shop there. And I would say 1/3 of this grocery store is food to go. And people live above the Whole Foods and in the apartment buildings around. And what they do is they stop at Whole Foods, grab something. So exactly what you're saying, grab something to go, and then finish cooking it or eat it at home. So, that kind of echoes, that's already a huge trend, I would say, where we live right now. So I think that's interesting that your reflections for where you're living, which is a very rural area, you could see the same trends. Then the second thing I wanted to respond to what you said was someone posted a joke on Facebook that I saw yesterday, and it was, I've been saying that I wished I had enough time to clean my garage. I've been saying this for years. Well, apparently that wasn't the issue, right? Which is exactly what you're saying about cooking is, I bought lots of cookbooks. I've been saying I'd like to start cooking for years, but apparently that isn't the issue.
It isn't the issue. That's it. Absolutely. But the thinking is, does this kind of major shift because of this health issue drive our mental minds to that kind of thinking? And the bigger question is, will it? Right? Yeah. I don't know that. I just see there's enough of people saying there's an opportunity here and I enjoy this, and I'm going to, by forced into it, whether that changed the culture, I don't know.
Yeah. So I'm interested to know how you're thinking about food supply right now, and how there's obviously disruptions, and what that impact is going to be, and how you're thinking about that.
Certainly, I don't see in today's market, because it's again, North American marketplace is a pretty big place. A lot of trucks still moving from, and I'm saying because I'm in the greenhouse business when I was in the vegetable business, very, very up to speed on what happens in Mexico and in the United States for what's coming here. I don't see, unless the border pinches down really tight between Mexico and the United States, I don't see any big threats on the food supply chain. I just see there's so much supply, there's enough capacity in my view. It's certainly, I think some areas are going to get pinched, and that would be some specialty foods. Your avocados maybe a little more difficult to get, and those kind of things. But as far as amounts of food, no. As far as, are we as a society, do we see a cocooning of supply on the production side in my chicken barn? Absolutely not. Do I see the processors having some challenges? Absolutely, and that's around employment issues. Whether there's so much that's got to be done, and we've not seen that here. Certainly in Canada, I hear of some issues in the U.S. Certainly around the beef production, and man, we just can't keep staff to keep this happening. So there will be some tightness of supply as far as getting into the marketplace. Maybe it hasn't shown its ugly head yet, and there isn't a lot of alarms around that yet. But I think you might hear that noise.
Yeah.
But as far as supply of beef, supply of all these things on the ground in production agriculture, not an issue. Getting it to the from point A, processing plant, to point B, the retailer, I don't see that being an issue. I just see maybe the processing being an issue. And that's where my mindset goes and says, how do you solve that? And it is to make it in the smaller processing plants, in broader areas in the community where staffing isn't near the issue. I think that's where I see this movement.
What about the challenge? So speaking about staffing, because traditionally, a lot of farmers have had problems finding people, locals, who are willing to do farm labor type work. So there's huge programs in the US and in Canada for foreign workers. And given the circumstances, do you think some of those foreign workers are going to be more inclined to want to be at home, and what sort of impact that might have?
So the Canadian government has approved the foreign worker program for this year, and they are permitting these people to come in even though this crisis is going on right now. So that is the news. I don't know if you're familiar with that. So as far as the people that are actually coming from there and are concerned of the issues coming north, and are they feel vulnerable, I can't answer that other than knowing the personalities and the type of people they are and what they're living with at home. I would suggest it wouldn't be a big priority for them. And then, no disrespect for them, they just got different priorities. We do. Our daughter, who owns a greenhouse, has I think up to 24 people at this time, and they're naturally they're going through the same process as all Canadians and new Canadians that you must follow. And they're following that. Are they guaranteed their wages like anybody else? So, because we have a contract that whether they work or not, you have to pay them when they're here. And if they're not working, we're still pay them the minimum 30 hours a week. So that mechanism, I just don't see that being something that is going to curtail any production issues on the food chain side.
Oh, good.
Certainly in Canada. Certainly in Canada. I can't speak on the U.S. side because I'm not familiar with the new policies.
Yes.
But no, I don't see labor issues tend to be an issue that in Canada that are very spotty, and it's and when it comes to manual labor, the offshore fills those voids. As far as high tech labor, we've got very, very large farms now with very high tech equipment. Most of those jobs have been filled because you just got to fill them with high tech people. So you just give them more money. You do tend to find them a person for that job.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I think we've covered the ground that I was most interested in covering for today. I don't know if you have any parting thoughts for people on this subject before we sign off for the day.
I think if there's anything that I would like to see more happen in rural is the support for local. I think, you know, I see a bigger movement certainly in the controlled atmosphere growing, and that's greenhouse business. Okay, you see in Ontario now strawberries grown in the greenhouse, and I just see that movement moving dramatically, increasing. So certainly promoting or buying local will drive local. And I see that being a something with this whole this whole idea that of this COVID-19 issue is going to drive more local investment. And if that if the buying happens, the investment will happen. So if there's any take-home message to support people like ourselves that tend to be very aggressive and opportunists, if we see any signals at all, that's support for local, we invest local. I think that's probably a message I'd like to see.
Well, and I'm glad you circled back to, or circled, taken the conversation that direction, because I think that, um, you know, there's going to be a certain necessity too of turning more local. And I would think it's something that I would desire to see. Like it's both. I think there's a necessity,
Yeah.
and I think there's an importance of us looking to our left and looking to the right, seeing who's around us, and reaching to those supply chains to support each other and uphold each other and keep that in the same way that we're cocooning in our homes, there needs to be a certain cocooning
At a national level.
yeah,
Level.
in our economy, in our local economies,
And
because
looking
yeah, go ahead.
and looking through an investor's lens. I tend to be in that, an opportunist kind of a lens that way. If I get a signal, I'll invest, right? So I guess what I'm asking for is what's the signal going to be? I got a kind of an idea, but to get supporters of that signal, which is financial institutions, investors, and stuff like that, they want a little bit more profound thought process. And the biggest profound thought process naturally is if somebody's prepared to put their money where their mouth is, it will happen, whether that's a buyer or an investor. And that's kind of that's where my ask is for the local community, is to say, you show your hand, I'll show my hand, and that's on the support of local development.
And what I hear you saying is you're ready. You show
Absolutely,
your hand, and
absolutely,
I'm ready to respond.
absolutely. And there's not many, what percentage of the people that invest versus people that would be supporters of investors is quite a spread. So yeah, I think you show your hand, people will respond. There's no question. And I think we'll all be surprised what those new ideas are after this
Yes.
goes away. I think we'll be totally surprised. This is my thought process, but I think we maybe get whacked out of left field on what these new things look like. I don't know that was ours. Yeah, because I'm thinking from a 62-year-old or 63-year-old perspective. There's people there that are my son, my daughter think in a different perspective, and we should maybe talk to them a little bit on this thought process too. But I'm doing my part to try and find out what the opportunity is moving forward.
But I think that, there's such a great value in having that spread of experience, right? Because what you and I grew up with in our rural upbringing, so I was greatly impacted for my whole life about how my parents, self-produced all their food because they had gone through the Depression. My father had lived through World War II and fought in World War II.
Good point.
So that greatly impacted me in how I have gone through my life. And I grew up with the experience of every summer having a garden, and we only bought oranges if they were in season.
Yeah.
Right?
It's a mindset change, right?
Because it was a luxury.
Yeah.
We did not buy store-bought cookies because first of all, they taste like crap compared to mom's.
Good point.
And second of all, they were a luxury. But people my age, for the most part, didn't have that kind of imprint because that shift had already happened. I just happened to be born to parents later in life that they were old, but older, not old, by the time they had me. And, so there's something there that we know that the younger generation doesn't know. But the younger generation has ideas and experiences that we don't have.
Absolutely.
Right. So we all need to be coming forward to the table with our ideas because we each hold a different piece of the solution.
Very much so.
What I love the most about your position in front of all of this is that you're sitting here taking a look at the board, seeing where the pieces are moving, and you're saying, and you're trying to understand it, and you're saying, I'm ready to respond. And I think that this is the retooling that we all need right now. There's talk about retooling factories, but we've got a whole bunch of capacities that have paused right now. Intellectual capacities, factory capacities, economic capacities. They're all still there. They haven't gone away. And what do we do with that? What do we create with that? I think is the question right now. And that we all need to be doing exactly that and saying, I've got this to offer. How do I apply it in this situation? And I'm ready to go.
But I don't know if we know yet.
No.
Okay, what that looks like yet, do we? I
No.
think there's a brain trust in there, but the brain trust is sitting at idle now because we're all sitting at the house, sitting at idle, looking at ideas. And this is my brain trust sitting at idle, looking at opportunities. When do we pull the trigger? And how do we pull the trigger is going to be amazing to watch. And I haven't got an answer on where I'm looking at a food perspective, but this is a lot broader than food, right? Because again, we're looking at a hotel opportunity too, right? We're going to build it, whether we need to build it or not. We're going. It's in the wind. But what changes in society when we're hemmed in? Does it change the way we think going out? And I'd like to know, and I'll read some more of your blogs to see, where people are going with this when it comes to time off time. Right? We have a lot of time off now.
Yes.
Do we, after this, look at time off as holy smokes, we've been running at 100 miles an hour way too long. We need more time off. And is there an opportunity there?
Yes.
It's something I would like to know, whether there's a culture shift down that line, because I think there might be.
I would agree with you 100%. Actually, I think that this forced retreat that the whole world is on is giving people time to reflect on what their priorities are.
Good point. No, I agree with you totally.
And I think that there will be a shift to simplification of life. And I also agree with you that we don't know what the outcome is, but people are already choosing with their actions right now.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Whether
I think we see, based on our discussions, I was amazed by that pizza shop saying as their sales are down and everybody shut. I couldn't believe it. I thought people would be eating at home rather than cooking at home, and people have made a decision to cook at home. I'm simply amazed. So there's an opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Agreed.
Yeah.
Well, Jack, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to be on this program with us today and join in my family's initiative. I appreciate all your thoughts and imagination. I appreciate your readiness to embrace this. And you may call it opportunistic, but I also call it creative capital. And I think that's what we need more than ever at this time. So thanks so much for being with me and with us today on the Daily Jump.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity and great concept you have there. I'll be more interested in more of your topics that you bring up further. I think it's great opportunity, and thanks for the thoughts.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Good luck.